بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم رضي الله تعالى عنه وسادة التابعين وعلماء أملين وأئمة أربع مجتهدين ومقلديهم إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. Just kind of like continuing from what we went over yesterday, and I opened up the topic of discussion yesterday with a statement from Britain's Prime Minister, former Prime Minister, Winston Churchill. And during this time, at this statement that I quoted, it was like one of them big rallies. All the Europeans was getting together. You understand that the mindset, that they had. They used to have a statement. What was the statement? The sun never sets on Great Britain, right? They say, make statements of that nature. And they spent a lot of time around the world colonizing, and ransacking different nations, right? In the 1400 or 1492, what's called Columbus, that was supposed to have been when Columbus discovered the world and so on and so forth. There's a lot of things that changed after 1492, right? Some of the discussions, right? A lot of Muslims they argue about this. As a matter of fact, it became a popular discussion because of Kyrie Irving. The Muslims prior to 1492 believed the earth was flat. After the Europeans conquered everything, everybody started saying the world was round. And so then you had Muslims now, when you look at the dialogue, Kyrie Irving from Australia, a lot of Australians believe the earth is flat. After Kyrie brought this argument up, this became like a hot trending topic. And so then the Muslims started going back and forth, and some of the elders, you sit with some of the elder teachers, you ask them, they be like, the earth is flat, and they base it based on the ayat in the Quran. But according to science, which is the methodology of the kuffar, you'd be like, the earth can't be possibly flat because of this, that, and the third, and scientifically like this and scientifically like that. And you'd be like, the ayat says this, but science says that. You have a Christian dilemma. Because the Christians always had a dilemma between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, and science. They didn't accept it. They didn't embrace it. The Quran is full of science. So prior to 1400, late 1400 going to 1500s, there was a lot of arguments that was adapted where it started changing, changing the culture of Islam, right? Starting in the 1700s, as they started to conquer the Maghreb, the Northwest Africa, the more they encroached upon it. If you pay attention, and this is where a lot of the Pan-Africanists, they love using this history. So what we had was during that time, you had up to the north, because prior to Queen Isabella taking over what is now known as Spain and the whole Moorish thing that everybody, our people love to proudly claim, right? I don't really necessarily have anything against Moors. It's me personally, because when you look at it historically, what did it represent? The northern lands was the lands of the white Africans, right? Most of Pan-African, they refer to them as Arabs, right? That pale-skinned Arabs and so on and so forth. Portugal is named Portugal because it came from when the Muslims had once conquered it. It was known as Portugal, right? The land of oranges, right? That's where Portugal comes from. So as the Muslims were defeated in the around that 1490, 92, that era, with Queen Isabella leading the pack, and they sent Christopher Colombo around the world to finish discovering what they called the rest of the New World. The Muslims' culture began to shift. It began to shift. And so what happened was, those Muslims that were defeated, they began to capitulate with those who disbelieve. Kind of reminds you of the United States Army, with Muslims in the army fighting against other Muslims. And so they joined their conquest and moved further south. Now, what's south of Morocco? What countries, what lands is south of Morocco? Mauritania. Well, what's near Mauritania? Balad of Sudan, basically, that whole area. There was a caliphate known as the Songhai Empire, Songhai Caliphate, right? Where they fought Sunni Ali, overthrew him, took over, the Muslims took over. Askia Muhammad was the Amir al-Mu'mineen, right? Imam Suyuti. Reason why Imam Suyuti was so dear, him and Abdul Karim al-Magili, they were companions. And a lot of the fatwas that Abdul Karim al-Magili came, they said that he was consulting Imam Suyuti, Jalaluddin al-Suyuti, right? It's the relationship between black Africans and Imam Suyuti. However, in that area, you had Timbuktu, you had Janneh, right? And those centers of learning. They were centers of learning, right? Centers where we weren't concerned with learning frivolous things. There's even documents of manuscripts being written for cataract surgery, being performed back then in the 1400s, right? Why they don't narrate, why there's never a narrative, a European narrative before 1400, because that's what they call the Dark Ages, right? And so now back to what I was mentioning about the Moors, that Spain area, Sicily, that little area that was known as the Andalus. So us darker skinned men that lived in the Andalus was labeled as Moors. And when the Spanish was fighting and conquering the Muslims, it was becoming more of a statement, a condescending statement, you Morisco, right? And how they catch you was that they used to pull the Muslim's pants down to see if he was circumcised or not. Because circumcision is a characteristic of the Muslims. So this is how they used to be able to tell. They would do things like this. Yeah, we look at it like, yo, man, it's kind of homosexual. But when you go to jail, what they do? They got you stripping butt naked. Looking all up in those things. Don't mean to be so graphic, but that's what they do. So what will make you think that someone wouldn't strip you down to make sure that you're uncircumcised, right? So these things started to happen. And so now I even notice Islamically, when people begin to narrate and they begin to speak about the Amala Ahmed Medina or the Maliki Madhab, it's always in reference of Andalusia. What happened to Sudan? Sudan was known for this. Timbuktu was known for being a place of knowledge. Why am I mentioning this? Because it affects the way that you think about yourself and about your deen. Some of us don't feel that our Islam is validated unless someone is lighter than us and from an Arab land. You don't feel that you're a good enough Muslim. Some of us feel that matter of fact, that ain't our Islam. We're going to make our own Islam. And this is where we started to develop our own Islam, right? Neither one of them have any success. The type of success that you found where Mali was established in Timbuktu. As a matter of fact, I was speaking to a brother, I think it's the Mandinka. A lot of them are descendants of Bilal ibn Rabah, right? So what happened? So now we look at this area, when you look at it, Timbuktu, it's not the prettiest place. A lot of their buildings are built like, mud clay, right? We don't have those big, immaculate, symbolic masajid with the dome. You don't have that, right? That is a symbol today of success for most Muslims, especially black Muslims. We ain't content unless our building got a dome on top. Eventually, this building probably get a dome too. You feel authentic. The real Islamic center of New Bern. Most Muslims don't feel authentic unless they have that. And then those who want to develop their own ideology, have their own culture, they condemn those things that are connected. So then the arguments came about. When did these arguments come about, or whether there's a such thing as Islamic attire? After the Europeans started occupying the Muslim lands. Because why? They were tired of looking at you in them long robes. We couldn't see your pretty women. It's part of American culture. Like looking at your naked women. Wow, she's nice. That's their culture. Eating outside become a habit, right? Anywhere Europeans go, they establish their restaurants, they love eating outdoors. It's like the hottest commodity. Daggone house in South Philly in Philadelphia. House in Philadelphia, if you knew Philadelphia in 2003, we used to walk to the mansion, walk down 24th and Christian. That was gangland. Walk down 24th and Christian, you can look up somebody urinating out the window, somebody smoking crack, right? On your way to the mansion. Go there now, there's all kinds of little coffee shops. Everybody sitting outside eating, right? Change. Why? Culture Culture change. When you change someone's culture, when you dominate someone, you change the narrative and you change the culture. You have to separate your mind state. As a Muslim, you have to think Muslim and behave Muslim. You have to almost like be Muslim to the point where you becoming arrogant with your Islam. Almost to that point. Because when you appear in someone else's land, the first thing they ask me is, my God, you anybody speak English around here? No, you ain't in America. We ain't got to speak English. You in our land. But an arrogant person will conduct themselves like that. Muslims should be walking. When they walk into town, man, where the masjids at around here? All these churches, y'all got churches? To make people feel bad. Ain't no Muslims. But we don't carry ourselves like that. If you understand the diaspora, the struggle of African Muslims in America, and I'm speaking about us, what I can't do is I can't necessarily write out the Moorish Science Temple, Nation of Islam, and those previous groups, even though they're on kufr, right? I can't erase them out of our Islamic history. And the reason being why. One thing that they did, if you look closely at Elijah Muhammad, the one thing that he done was he tore down your high esteem for your adversary. And at that time, it was white people, right? And it wasn't just all white people, it was the whole entire system and anyone, because the people, black people, felt inferior to them. You couldn't go to the same bathroom, right? This is our diaspora. This is our struggle. This is our history. Couldn't go to the bathroom in the same bathroom. You had to have a colored person's bathroom, right? So what did he do? He started telling some of this stuff was fictional, it was made up, and some stuff was actual fact. So what did he do? He labeled those who were white, what did he call them? The devils. The devils, right? And black people begin to run, even those who weren't even part of the nation started like, yo, I'm feeling that. Right? They took on that ideology. And what did it do? It built pride. Right? Marcus Garvey, you look at Marcus Garvey with the whole marching. That's where the NOI the fruit got all that marching and stepping stuff from. The parade was to show pride for the people. That was Marcus Garvey's idea. Right? What does that do? What does that do for you? It builds pride. It builds esteem. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, for those who don't believe, what does Allah call them? I want the Arabic term. What is the term? A kafir. How do you change that narrative? When did we become so extra sensitive? Right? Yes, it has to be used. Allah is tearing down your reliance, your love, the love affair you have for kufr and disbelief. He makes it look despicable in the eyes of the believers. So in order to develop a new way of thinking, you have to have a them versus us mentality. And once upon a time when that existed, what did you do? You had more unity because them, oh, you part of them? Or you part of us? Right? Mecca and Medina, it was very clear. It was them versus us. It wasn't no in between. And when you got to Medina, it was very clear whose side you were on. It was very clear. Mecca, it was extremely clear because either you was a mushrik, a person who worshiped idols, or you was a Muslim. One or the other. There was no in between. When you got to Medina, you know how that they were able to tell what side you were on? They tried to figure out where you was at? By how often you were in the masjid. If you were at the masjid for salat, they like, he one of us. Even if you were a munafiq, because you know what a munafiq is? A munafiq is a person who outwardly displays himself as a Muslim, but internally they're a disbeliever. That's what a munafiq is. When you're using it, just calling someone a hypocrite, somebody who does opposite of what they that's different, right? That's why, like, some people with the misunderstanding of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where it said ayatul munafiq thalatha, right? The three signs of a munafiq, the three signs of nifaq, like a hypocrite. There's signs of a hypocrite, right? But the full-blown hypocrite is you don't really believe. That's what Allah's talking about in Surah Baqarah throughout the Quran. You know, they would say that they're with you, but really they're with them, right? Oh man, we was really with you. We was just joking, right? You have that. Anybody who poses as an agent. You have a lot of federal agents now that are coming in the masjid. We were in a situation. We were dealing with a issue in the Philadelphia area with a masjid in Delaware. They had this sheikh come in, and you got to start breeding your own scholars. You got to stop bringing outside people, because what happens is usually those people, if they're not sincere, they tear your community apart. How they tear your community apart? They bring them in, the people start loving them. Yeah, the sheikh is teaching us. The sheikh is teaching us. He starts making innuendos at your imam. Yeah, he's not here for all five salats. And you're like, yeah, that's right. That's right, sheikh ain't here for all five. Right? Then he start pointing out something. He doesn't even know Arabic, right? You're like, yo, that's true. Right? And this is what we seen. We walked into we didn't realize what we was walking into. Walked into a masjid, probably about 100 people in the masjid from Maghrib. Going to masjid, and then the sheikh that everybody had the problem with, he was there. He shows up. So we watch him come in. He carries himself very majestic. Walk real heavy, real big fat guy. Comes in, you can tell it's him. Everybody stands up, following behind him. So the administration, they said, look, sheikh, we closed your class. We closed your class. We talked about this behind closed doors. So therefore, this issue that's about to go on, sheikh already knew that he wasn't supposed to be doing it. Sheikh, we talked to you about this, and so on and so forth, right? So now all of his students are young men. About out of 100, maybe about 20 people were with the administration. The other 80 was ready to rumble. You cannot stop Allah's deen. Sheikh said he's going to teach. So when everybody was riled up, how they brought this thing to a closure, the sheikh said, I'll teach out in the parking lot. We'll come out. We'll hold our darts outside. All right? Now you got all 80 men roll out. So now people are like, man, that's crazy. So now there's a lot of bickering going on back and forth. And somebody said, you know what? You wouldn't have this problem. You call immigration. You need to call the feds in here. There was a brother standing right next to me, whipped out his badge. We already here, brother. We're here. We're watching him. Like, whoa. I said, yo, let's get back to Philly, man. We out of here. Y'all got too much going on. I ain't getting down with this. This is why I'm saying this. Don't think that they're not amongst you. They are with you. They'll come in. They'll scout every once in a while. They'll come in. And they study you. This is why you have to have yourself under control. I spoke about this last night. We talked about extreme case of poverty. That poor person. When you're impoverished, you're almost like animal-like. Be honest with you. We don't want to admit it, but we like animal-like. When you got a hungry dog, he'll eat you if he got to, right? And so with some of our mentality when it comes to poverty, because capitalism is a religion in itself, poverty in the religion of capitalism is kufr. Being rich is considered iman. You were poor, you were kafir, right? Not literally, but in the religion of capitalism. And so all of the people that's on the bottom, guess what we do? We want to be rich. You idolize being rich so much that when you get well, you start spending it in a real frivolous, foolish manner. Yeah, I'm about to buy some gold Air Force Ones, 24 karat John, $1,200. I never thought I'd see the day people spend almost $2,000 on a pair of sneakers that are flat. They're not even like Nikes with air in the bubbles. They flat shoes that come from Europe somewhere because they hand stitched. In paying $500 for a belt. For a belt? Yeah, you used to just sag your pants. You gotta pay $500 for a belt. You got extreme. From one extreme to the next. This is the impoverished mind state. So in the impoverished mind state, you become like a martyr. You want to become a martyr. So you'll rob and kill for money. That's the religion of capitalism. And a lot of Muslims are playing in the religion of capitalism. Islam comes with its own economic system. It comes with its own marriage laws, its marriage system. We had a big debate in the imams in Philadelphia. So, and all of this came from, I kind of was the guy who reigned on the party. All this stuff is all based off of wanting to be accepted by the kuffar, right? So they was arguing about whether or not we should register our marriages through the city, all right? So it was like, yeah, good idea. That's right, man. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, we need to register because, they need to respect our marriages. That's right. Yeah, good idea. Yeah. So, they steady going on about this. Yeah, you know what? We're going to pass this through. So let me ask you a question. What? You want to be accepted? Your marriage want to be accepted by, right? Yeah. What about our divorce? Because we don't divorce the same way. We don't have that same manner. You go to the imam, y'all bring apart what's going on. Delegate, he gives the ruling. Look, that's talaq. He pronounced the talaq. She has to wait 3 menstrual cycles. Ain't no way. We don't have the same thing. In their marriage, you signing that city hall thing, your wife can get a boyfriend in between because y'all separated. My wife can't have another man while she's in Iddah, unless they both want to die. Right? Islam, they don't have the same system. So I said, so why are we even working this hard to even get accepted like that? Well, it just seems like because why we're still thinking from the low man on the totem pole. We don't have that Islam. We don't have that poke your chest out. We Muslim, right? And so then what happens when you start talking like this, then you have those who really hate Islam, but they just love the idea that Allah is the only true God. They hate Islam in itself, its practice, its rules and regulations. They be like, well, what y'all really doing? What we're really doing is trying to be Muslim. That's what we're trying to do. Well, what you plan on doing? What are you suggesting? Are you suggesting that I play, in the white supremacist system, or do you accept that we stay on the sideline and handle our own affairs? All right? You can still establish, what they call in Pennsylvania, the CDC, the Community Development Centers and things like that, put bids on contracts for construction and stuff like that. You can still do that, even as a Muslim. So what does that do? So what happens is when the Muslim, he usually be the head of that, he starts condemning the masajid in the communities. Y'all ain't doing nothing. We doing all the work over here because you are a capitalist. You're a capitalist in philosophy. Because one thing I would never do is, you ever heard that statement? You don't never forget where you come from? If I'm Muslim first. If I happen to get the door open, I get the floodgates, then everybody come in. I'm not going to start condemning the community. We have a habit of doing that. And a lot of that comes from our upbringing. Yeah, because that's that impoverished, that capitalist mentality. When I start doing good, I'm going to look down on the rest of you old dirty Negroes. Right? Instead of trying to bring them up. This is one of the things that you've seen. Remember we was talking about Elijah Muhammad. This is one of the things you've seen. Muhammad speaks, them bean pies, them other businesses, they got them brothers that was on heroin. Matter of fact, you want to see a good program? That's why I don't understand why now Muslims are crying for mental institutions. They had a mental institution from amongst the nation of Islam. Throw you in an empty apartment, let you sweat out your dope. Or give you some, what's that nutmeg? Right? They knew that. We need to think of alternatives. For someone to convince you that you should be voting inside of a political party because of Medicaid or Medicare, we won't be able to get medicine. Shoot, we used to know our own medicine. Once upon a time, what has happened to those type of things? Start eating right. Most of us eat like savages. High fructose corn syrup. We don't like no regard whatsoever. Right? One thing Elijah Muhammad had right was how to eat to live. Islam tells you how to eat to live. Allah says it's all Baqarah. Eat food that is halal wa tayyibin. Halal and good food. We ain't supposed to be eating no slop. But because we don't see Islam as something that's important, guess what? Man, I'm going to go get these fries. These fries is good. We're eating for taste. We're not like eating like men are honest so that we can keep our body nourished so that we can worship Allah. So we can work hard to take care of our families. No, we eat. This is why we're becoming overweight and lazy. Umar ibn Khattab, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said it during his khilafah because everyone was starting to get big. So one man, he hit him in his stomach. He said, what's this? He said, oh, it's the barakah of Allah. When you eat good, you think you're doing good. He's like, man, that thing caused you to be lazy for salah. Sheer destruction. And what's happening? The bigger we get, the lazier we become. I need y'all to take a trip to Philadelphia and see it. You go to a lot of masajid. I ain't seen so many young men under 30 that got diabetes and weigh about 300-400 pounds, about 5'6". None of them fasting. Whole masjid. And I ain't talking about like 10 brothers. I'm talking about like 50 brothers in the masjid. Everybody eating all day long. Anybody fat? Man, I got sugar, man. I got sugar. I got high blood pressure. My gout messing with me and everything. Meanwhile, prior to Ramadan, he just running around like a savage. Man, hey, I'm sick, man. Right? No riyada, no engagement in working out or anything like that. All he wants is food and women. For it in Spanish. Macho. You ain't got it no more. Everybody's just kind of like complainers and, real tender now. You're only hard when they... Most shooters are emotional. You know what I'm talking about. This street stuff I'm talking about. Most shooters are emotional. They do emotional shooting. You can tell by the way that the person is killed. All you gotta do is watch a lot of these cold cases and stuff. They tell you it's an emotional killing. He shot him with a whole clip, put a whole clip. You be like, yeah, I dumped the whole clip in right? This is how they talk. One shot can do it all. But he was just emotional. Let me show you again. Right? We had an incident in Philadelphia where somebody shot the daggone public bus up. You know why he shot the public bus up? Because a girl was on the bus arguing with somebody, and she called, oh yeah, I'll get this thing shot. Babe, meet me at the corner of such and such. He can't shot the whole bus. Could have killed everybody on the bus. Emotional. Emotional. We don't have it like we used to. And you have to develop that. But it has to be, once it's developed in caught, it has to be passed down now. It has to be taught. It makes me think of one story. I think it was Sheikh Mohammed Bello and his Infaqul Maysur. I believe that's what the name of the book was. And this was talking about when they were going to fight against Sunni Ali, when Sunni Ali was the leader in the Shanghai region, right? And they had a lot of young men. Now, the narrator said that one of the problems that we had was that our young men, they didn't know anything about combat. They didn't know anything. Only thing they knew was book knowledge. And reason being is because they sheltered the young men. They sheltered them. And we have a tendency of doing that. Our children, you're like, yo, I don't want you to be, I want you to be. And that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. But when it comes to real life situations, they don't know how to encounter and engage. So what you have, you're seeing this, it's a hybrid. When you look at generations, you had a lot of parents that were like, I'm going to shelter you. I'm going to make sure you don't do anything, right? I'll make sure that none of this comes your way. You can't guarantee and ensure anybody anything, because now the places that most of us are running to, these are the places that are subjected to shootings, especially school shootings, right? They're being subjected to these type of things now. So nobody's safe. There's really no real such thing as safe. Muslim men used to make their areas safe. They'll find an area where they wanted to start their community. They will move there. They would get a masjid. They will make sure that it was somewhere in not in a residential, in a commercial area, right? Where they were able to open up stores along there, buy properties, and build a community. That mentality is not there no more. So back to Elijah Muhammad. So Elijah Muhammad established the Muslim, what was it? Not Muslim Journal. Muhammad Speaks. They had Muhammad Speaks. Final Call, I think it's Farrakhan's paper. But whatever the case is, this was a way to get income. And all of the other groups that came behind, the Ansars that came behind, they had to go out and sell papers. It created income. There was no man sitting around idle. You had to go out and sell incense. Look at how we destroyed. Because if you go back in time and look in the 90s up to the early 2000s, most of the Muslim men were vendors. They had felonies. They had all kinds of charges. They were vendors. And then what started happening was the attack from the minbar and then the attack from the women. We don't want no brothers selling incense and oils. So we also always ask them, what do you want? You want somebody to rob you? You want us to follow you to the ATM? What do you want us to do? Right? You take people who used to be hard criminals or got something where they may not have the education to get a job. So they create their own job and they put it down. Versus if you went 10 years before that, from 95 back to 85, they were encouraging men to start their own businesses. Now we're here in the new millennium. Is anybody encouraging business anymore? Anybody, let me rephrase that. Anybody under 40 and not part of a pyramid business encouraging our youth to do business no more? No. You ask most young people now, you start a business, how? I don't even know how, right? Most people, they don't have that insight. You have a lot of things that's going on now. Everybody thinks they the next best rapper. You got these cell phones, got cameras on them. I know a young boy that was in the masjid. He started his little movie production business from his cell phone. Now he's like one of the big little producer, in the city. You have to have that. But all of this comes from having a sovereign psyche, an independent psyche. Like I said last night, it shouldn't even be called sovereign psyche. It should be called Muslim psyche. Because just being Muslim, there's a natural demand for independence from any individual that becomes Muslim. You are not like everyone else no more. That's why you felt special becoming Muslim. You're not like everybody else. You don't believe like everybody else believes. Our women are not like anybody else's women, right? We have a whole different approach, a whole different mentality. But because we're not satisfied with it, then what happens, you start to move away from that. So the second part, what I wanted to focus on last night, I focused on the explanation from Surah Kafirun. Remember, we talked about that last night, and I showed you how Islam shows you had independent mind. So what I want to give just a little focus on, there's a little history on why, right? And that's what I want to speak about just a little bit. And then, but Allah Ta'ala, He always intends to give the oppressed the upper hand. That's always Allah Ta'ala's intention. Because those who are always the ruling class, they get a little bit above themselves. And so eventually, it's the sunnah of Allah, it never changes. So eventually Allah has to knock him right off his square. And if you think that this system is going to be like this forever, then you don't believe in the Quran. It'll never remain like this. And you have to see it for what it is. You have to embrace your reality. You don't have to walk around with your head down feeling sorry for yourself, but we have to begin to embrace our reality and embrace who we are. Embrace our change. Embrace who we become, whom Allah Ta'ala intends for us to be. So in the Quran, in Surah Al-Qasas, little history about Surah Al-Qasas. This is the 28th surah in the Quran. This was the last surah revealed in Mecca before the Hijrah to Medina. It was being revealed as the Prophet ﷺ was on his way to Medina. They said that this surah, it was revealed between Mecca and a town called Juhfa during the Prophet ﷺ's Hijrah. Okay? Now look at the content of the particular surah, especially these beginning ayats that we'll emphasize on. So two things Allah Ta'ala, He starts off with. One is that Allah Ta'ala, He is giving you reassurance and confidence that the Quran is the truth. He's developing your psyche, your mental. How do you approach the Quran? That the Quran is absolutely true. There's no doubt in it, right? So Allah starts off with Tasimim. He starts off with that. Then Allah Ta'ala, He says, وَتِلْكَ آيَاتُ الْكِتَابُ مُبِينٌ. Right? He says about the Quran, He said that this is the book that's mubin, it's clear, without any ambiguity, without anything, anything altering it, right? And one of the things that you have to understand, especially, you have to have this mind state going into the Quran and approaching the Quran. Why is that? Because these ayahs, Allah tells you about a lot of things that happened with the previous prophets and nations from those prophets. And if you don't believe in them, then you're going to disregard them and become hopeless like everybody else. Man, we ain't never going to get it like that. We might as well just go ahead and embrace the change. We might as well just go ahead and opt into the supremacist system. We can still be Muslim and be a supremacist supporter. They don't even go together. But this is the Muslim theory today. Well, what are we really doing? We ain't just go sit around and just keep reading the Quran all day. This is bad. This is bad to even hear Muslims talk like this. Because the Quran motivates you. The Quran makes you move. You believe in it, you'll move. You'll move. You'll take care of yourself. It tells you in Allah Ta'ala tells you in there. A lot of people overlook ayah. Man, go out, go make money, take care of your family. It's in the Quran. Everything that you need is right there. Just a matter how much you read it, the more repetitive. And the beautiful thing about the Quran is the more you read it, the more you get more insight and the deeper your understanding becomes. Right? Many of us, we think we read it one time, we get deep. No, there's more layers. Keep going. Right? Then that should inspire you to start learning Arabic. Keep going. Right? Allah tells you that He revealed the Quran in Arabic so you can do what? Yaqilun. So you can use your intellect, so you can think. So therefore it tells you what? Keep going. It gets deeper. Well, many of us be satisfied with just reading this one surah for the day and one ayah, and we think we deep because we can argue with everybody. I knew it. I found the ayah. I'm going to go argue with Ishmael later. Watch. I got this ayah for him. We get to the master. That's usually what we do now. Right? So anyway, Allah Ta'ala says, Tilka ayatun kitabun mubin. That the verses that Allah Ta'ala revealed, they did in His book, they're clear, easy, they're understandable, they're clear for you. So what is Allah doing? Building your confidence in the Quran. So then Allah Ta'ala in the same surah, Allah Ta'ala He says, Natlu alayka min نبأ موسى وفرعون بالحق لقوم يؤمنون. Then Allah Ta'ala, He says that we recite to you the part of the story of Fir'aun and Musa with truth. Right? This is Allah's telling you this. It's not, I'm not making this up. This is what it's saying in the Quran, and it's not going to change. We believe that the Quran is the speech of Allah Ta'ala. Right? It's not created. So what are we saying? Here is Allah telling you this. You should believe this with confidence. We shouldn't have to constantly keep running back and seeing if the Bible can agree with what we don't care if the Bible agree with it or not. Allah's telling you this is haq, bil haq. Have Muslim dominance. Have that kind of attitude, that behavior. Right? You develop that. So then what is Allah Ta'ala? He's telling you about the story of Musa and Fir'aun bil haq. Right? He said it is for those who believe. Right? For people who believe. So therefore, what you hear, there's some insight. What Allah is setting you up and telling you that what's here is something that's relevant. Now remember, let's think of first the mind state. Where was this surah revealed? When was it revealed? It was revealed when they were leaving to go to from Mecca to go to Medina. All right. Now remember the mind state of the people. They didn't just leave like, yo, we got a job offer in Medina. They were ran out of their homes. They were fighting against their family. People didn't want to do business with them. They were down and out. So they said, yo, what's the next move? We're gonna leave in order to preserve our Islam. We out of here. How many of us would leave in order to preserve your Islam? Right? We were just talking about it last night. You don't hear people really moving in order to establish anything. People, I'm just gonna sit right here and do it right here. You see things ain't going nowhere, you stay put. But the Muslims, they were like, nah, we got to go somewhere where we can freely worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So here, this surah is meant for motivating and to give firasa, to give insight, right? It's motivating, it's giving you confidence, it's reassuring you, and it's teaching you the scheme. He said, Musa wa Fir'aun. He said, Musa, who's the hero, Fir'aun is the enemy. Bottom line. Musa wa Fir'aun. Fir'aun is the prototype. He's the prototype. He's the perfect model that all oppressive and evil leaders mimic their society after. And you'll see right here, when you look in this surah, you will see the States of America. You will see it. And when you look at it, if you can't identify yourself and your people and see Islam in there, then you got blinders on it. You can't see. This is what Allah is teaching you in this surah. It's right here in the Quran. Not nothing made up. So then Allah Ta'ala, He says in here, He says, Inna fir'auna ala al-ardi wa ja'alna ahliha shi'a'an yastad'ifuna ta'ifan minhum yudhabbihim abna'ihim wa yastahihim nisa'uhum. Right? Innahu kana mina mufsidin. So here the first thing that Allah Ta'ala is telling you about Fir'aun. He's telling you about the enemy. He says Fir'aun, the Pharaoh, that he became he became like high in status in the society, right? And when you read, there's numerous surahs, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, Musa alayhi salam, the story between Musa and Fir'aun is the most talked about story by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran. There's a lot of lessons to learn from that, right? So he talks about Fir'aun. He said that Fir'aun made himself high in the land. Now, this is the other part. That's amazing, right? He divided the people, Shia, and he divided them into groups. And out of all of the different groups, he oppressed one of them. Then let's count down how many ethnicities and different groups we can think of in the United States, right? We black people last, okay? What's the other nationalities? White Americans, right? Italian Americans. Okay, everything with every ethnicity, how America is their dominant philosophy and culture, and they don't do it to you. They don't give it to you nasty. They give it to you in a nice way. So you have to put American behind everything, right? You got white Americans, you got Italian Americans, you got Irish Americans, you got Pakistani Americans, you got the Bangladeshi Americans, you got the Black American Muslims. You got everything American, right? And each of them groups, each group hold a different position, right? You even have gay people now. They're their own group. They're Shia in their group now. What they call it, the LGBTQ or whatever, LTBQ community, right? Now they become their own group. You have to understand politics, American politics. You have to understand how it works. Everybody's broken up into groups. Then Allah said about Fir'aun that he did what? He oppressed one group of them. One group is oppressed. What does that mean? It's not just talking about like, people being able to be engaged in crime. They're oppressed. There's certain things that you're just not going to get. You're not going to get that same thing. Remember when you read the story of Musa, remember Musa was from Bani Israel. Musa was from them. Remember there was a man from amongst Bani Israel. He killed one of the Egyptians. He killed one of the people of Pharaoh. Right? And what happened? Because him and another guy, they were getting in the rumble, and Musa tried to stop. Musa ended up hitting him and killing the guy, right? So now Musa's a fugitive. He's seen the same guy again doing the same thing again, and he said, man, what is it? Every time I see you, you're going to start trouble? This is how we need to be with our people. Okay, we're going to step in. You got to stop your nonsense. Now he back at his nonsense again. What is that? Is this what you're doing? So you know what he did? He snitched on him. He said, yo, y'all looking for Musa? He right here. That's how Musa had to make history. He had to go. He went and snitched on him. And then what do you think you got amongst the Muslims? What do you think you got amongst the Muslims? If you know anything about Imam Jamil Amin, if you don't know about Imam Jamil Amin, research his situation. Look it up. It's online. Imam Jamil Amin, a.k.a. H. Rat Brown, right? Muslim. He became Muslim, part of the Black Panthers, all that stuff. He became SNCC and all the other organizations. He became Muslim. Very active. He was never known to be a person that bit his tongue. He was very vocal, right? What happened? He became Muslim. He moved down in the west end of Atlanta, started acquiring properties, established businesses, established a community, a Jamaat. He had over 10 Jamaats throughout the United States. As soon as we hit the pinnacle of the 2000s, he's supposed to move to a town in Whitehall, Alabama, where they were going to give the Muslims their own section of that town in Alabama. What happened? Allegedly, a cop was shot in his store, and it was supposed to have been him. And one cop got killed, and the other cop said that they shot the person that killed the cop, which was supposed to have been Imam Jamil Al-Amin. When they find Imam Jamil Al-Amin in Whitehall, Alabama, no bullet wounds, no scars, right? Anybody ever been shot, you're not hiding that. It's not like a little chicken pox scratch. You scratch in the heels eventually. No, the bullet wound is putting a dent in your flesh. None of that was on him. Sent him to prison for life. That was the beginning of the breakup of the Muslim community, right? One fraction of it. That was the beginning of the breakup of one fraction of it. So with their ideology, their mindset is there's not going to be no heroes. We're not going to have these kind of heroes. Oh, no. Because what happened, that was a time where Islam had some fortitude with it, right? Same thing, even whether you like him or not, I don't agree with a lot of his philosophy, but even with Imam Wafdi Muhammad, his community had fortitude. They were more business-based, Afrocentric type of Islamic movement, right? There's some things where some of their beliefs is contrary to what Islam teaches, but nonetheless, they work in the interest for their people, right? That movement declined. As a matter of fact, if you see all of the newer Muslims now with the whole, let's vote and get involved in political process, they won't give credit even Wafdi Muhammad, but it's actually him who developed that ideology. You have to know and understand, where we're going. You have to have some kind of sovereign psyche. You have to have a developed mindset of being able to stand on your own 2 feet. The same way you had that attitude when you left home. Like, look, I'm a man now. I'm going to go out here and do what I got to do. All right, I'm grown. That's how most people say. I'm grown. I'm going out here. I'm going to do what I got to do. You have to have that same mindset. You have to be able to do that. And you have to be able to understand, to be able to submit to leadership. One of the most complicated things for many of our black men and women to embrace leadership, because male leadership is not in the homes no more. The man is missing. He's dead, locked up, or he just ain't around, right? Pop getting old. A lot of the grandchildren ain't even going to be able to benefit from Pop. Because Pop getting old, he's dying, right? So then what happens? You have a vacuum. And yes, it's good. Alhamdulillah, you got Big Mama, the matriarch and everything, but there's just some things that a woman can't give a man. There's some things she just can't give him. She can be like the mother, like Nat Turner. You from Africa, You a black man, you good. What he do? He went out and slaughtered 50 white folks, right? She didn't tell him to slaughter them. She just put self-determination in him. And he was like, man, I ain't gonna keep going through this. And he got his little dream from Jesus, right? That's the story of Nat Turner. But however, there's certain things that's missing. So now, as a result of this, we don't need no man to independent. As a result of this, you're starting to have more and more young black men becoming homosexual. Right? They're becoming more and more homosexual and becoming real flamboyant with it. Men are a little too well kept. If you understand what I'm saying. They're a little too well kept. They're real prissy, real primp, my honey. Listen, if you ever listen to your rappers, your average rapper, all he rap about is how much his clothes cost, how cold his ice is, what drinks he got, how he got 2 girls, he got this, he got that. He's in the beginning stages of becoming a homo. Those are beginning stages. I got 2 girls, right? He just keep getting high. And you know what comes out of drugs and girls, right? So everybody start looking the same. So you be in there with your homeboy and the girls. So these things are happening. What's happening? The man is being redefined. Why are young women are falling in love with these guys who's supposed to be pseudo thugs? Because the thugs look like they got power. That's why. The average guy, they don't see him as having power. They don't look at him in that same light. And this is in mentioning all this. This is part of that shi'ain, that separated mind state. But there's still more that Allah Ta'ala He said in this ayah. Not just about dividing them up into different groups, but He used one group and oppressed that group. So guess who's the guinea pig? Who did they do the syphilis testing on? That oppressed group, right? Who did they when they do the? I don't know if they got them here, but I know in up north. They do these state testing for schools. I forgot the name of it. What's the name of it? Is it PSSA, right? It's this testing. And they test you, I think it's about 4th grade. And they say those who in the 4th grade, that test, it depends on how often they fail. They can predict how many jails they need to build based off of the amount of children passing this particular test. And whose children usually fail the most? Our children. Why is that? Because how do they oppress you? They're just not going to outright oppress you no more. You look bad just being a straight oppressor. So this is why they call it supremacist system, a white supremacy system. So how do you oppress people? You give them poor education. How do you give them poor education? You put them in the poorest neighborhoods. Oh, blame it on money. We don't have enough funding. You guys need to go ahead and do fundraisers and get, put some money. But you're supposed to be the government. You're supposed to be taking care of these people. You want them to, you use these stipends and things that you give them as the rallying cry. You need to go out and vote because whoever the president is this year is going to cut food stamps next year. Remember, this year is Trump. Remember, what was it, Romney when Obama was running and made everybody go out that was on welfare go out and vote? Man, you better go ahead because Romney getting in office. You're going to be, we don't even see it. It's the same thing every year. They scare you into voting. They scare you. You're afraid to lose something that you ain't even got to work hard for, killing your whole work ethic. You don't even have that desire no more. Oh, as long as we vote him in, he going to give us food stamps, then I'm cool with him. Right? He take away food stamps. I don't want to vote for him. I'll turn Republican. If Republicans start giving away food stamps, hey, well, black people be Republican again. But anyway, so you split them up into groups. Now, what happens, he said that they slaughtered the boys and they keep the women alive. Why would you kill the boys and keep the women alive? You would figure that, the boys. Now, first of all, in context, Pharaoh had a dream. Pharaoh had a dream that there was a young boy from amongst Bani Israel that was going to rise up and overthrow him, right? So he was fearful of that. So that's why he started killing the boys. But think about it. What benefit is it to kill all the young males and keep the women alive? Women are naturally submissive. It's just you only experience that non-submissiveness usually in your marriages, right? Let's just keep it real. But on the workplace, if you want to run a business, you hire a female, she will run that better than the man. Because usually the man that's working, he's like, man, I can do this now. I know how to do the books and I'm start my own business. Female, she's an employee for life. She's not really thinking about starting off her own thing, right? She will hold you down. You will never have to worry about something. But with men, it's like, man, he might mess around and learn the ropes and leave us. That's always the potential. Right? So then when you say, look, man, I'm going to start my own thing. Wait a minute, let's give you some more money. We'll offer you more money. I'm like, nah, man, I can get more money when I start my own business, right? So, but with women, they will uphold because women are inclined towards power, and they trust. They built their lives is based off of trust. When someone gives you their daughter to marry, or Wakil gives you the sister to marry, he's entrusting you. She's entrusting you. You're going to be able to do the right thing by her. Nobody's going, well, some relationships now, they going in mistrusting each other. They put up brick walls, right? That's new millennium marriages. That's why they don't last long. Nobody trusts each other. Everybody think that somebody's trying to get over on them. But a normal situation, there's an element of trust there. When you're going into the relationship, there is an element of trust that, I'm trusting that this is the case, and I'm trusting that she's going to be a good sister, good sister to the family, and so on and so forth, right? So you use them. Now, some of the details, when you look up the tafsir with the understanding, they said that how they used to kill the children, you would think in your mind, you would think soldiers was there, just cut the little boys' throats. No, firstly, they was killing them. They was killing all the male children, right? And Musa, part of the story, when you start reading the tafsir, you'll realize that he was one of them, but his mother put him in the Nile River, and he went off, and they found Fir'aun's wife, Asiyah, found him, right? And basically fell in love with him. And of course, this is only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Took him in, and Allah protected him by means of putting him under Fir'aun. So, but with the rest of the young men, they were being slaughtered. If they were being born, it was a boy, kill him, right? And they used the women to do it. That's the amazing part. I always thought it was like the soldiers was killing them. No, they used women to do it. So then what happened was, because you were killing so many males, there was no men to do the labor. Because women, no matter what type of injections or anything they take, they're still never as physically strong as a man, because Allah made them that way. So they're like, look, man, we ain't gonna be able to get the work done if we keep killing all these young boys. We ain't got nobody to work. So they started killing everybody every other year. So that's how Harun, Musa's brother, alayhi salam, was able, he was alive, right? Because if he was born the year after or the year before, he would have been part of the slaughter, part of the young boys to get slaughtered. So they took that. So now, if you can relate that to today's time, if you are not learning, right, you are not teaching the young men. We have to understand it and learn the concept of family. Family is all about nourishing and teaching. It's all about nourishing and teaching. I know, like, some of the concepts and the ideas that television promotes or that society promotes is that children are supposed to have fun. They're just supposed to play, things like that. I don't think I would did half the stuff I do today if some of the males in my family didn't treat me the way they treated me. They had me doing work at 5 years old, carrying wood. I hated it. I used to curse. You got me. I'm carrying wood. Uncle made me climb on the roof with the just to put one nail in in the paper on the roof. I was mad. I'm like, man, I want to play basketball. Man, get up here. You ain't gonna be no lazy bum. He had me up there hitting the hammers. I didn't like it, but I learned something from it. It did something to me. It developed me in a certain particular way. But now you have young men that's not engaged in anything. Only thing they doing is sitting around playing Xbox all day, eating, talking to girls, right? Shooting hoop all day. Nothing constructive. Their minds isn't even working on, we're going to start a business. When we were so poor, first of all, we thought of ways to make money. 6, 7 years old, we out in the grocery store parking lot. Man, can we carry your bags for you? Right? Because we wanted stuff. Our mother couldn't afford it. I think at that time, my mother was working for about $2.75 an hour. And this was in the 80s. So what we would do, we would think of ideas of how to make money. We go ahead, go do this. As a young boy, you see the Muslims running around selling incense. You're like, man, I'm going to sell incense with them. All right, what we going to do? We can go over here. We can do this. We can do that. We used to try to think of ways of how we can, make money in order to get what we want. So what did that do? That pushed an independent mind state. You didn't have that concept of just sit around and wait for mommy all day. You went out and made your own type of way. But when you have someone that enables you and don't push you in that direction, you'll never learn that. So what does that do to a society? Because every individual family is one part and it makes up part of the community. So if you got a bunch of people that's having this mind state, then what happens to the community? They become enabled. Nobody's going to do anything. So you have a bunch of children in the same mentality. But they give you projection and false hope that if you go to school, get good grades, and you finish college, you'll be able to get a good job. But really what you're doing is you're remaking the mind state of another slave, because he becomes a wage slave after that. And then when he don't get a job, which you find in a lot of people who got college degrees and not getting jobs, what happens? Now he's ready to commit suicide. Because he spent all that time and all that pressure on getting this degree and so on and so forth. So you put him and you put the average, you put him and the average thug together and they have a conversation. The thug is starting to look good. So now you got a college grad. Now he's selling drugs. He starts his own enterprise. These are true stories. This is the reality, right? Crime should not always be an option for a Muslim. It should not be the first thought of a black man. But that is what's happening. And it all starts with the mentality that's being given to you when you're a young child. It all starts there. And what happens when you from a young child growing up to a certain point, you're supposed to be learning. Your life is all about learning. It's not about playing. It's not about doing those type of things. So we'll move on. So he says about them, about the men and the women he slaughtered the boys. He, made the women and raised them up, right? Women are also taken care of. Can men go and apply for food stamps in the same way a woman could with children? No. Can a man gain Section 8 the same way, all these government amenities the same way that a woman can? No. So what's our reality? What's happening? Our reality is, and it's set for you to be like this. So moving forward. So Allah Ta'ala, he says, we intended to favor those who were held weak in the land. Now, this is where Allah Ta'ala, he's promising the weak that he's going to favor them, right? Allah says, in the surah, that we intend to make them, hold on, I'm going to give you the Arabic to it, inshallah. He says, Allah Ta'ala, he says about them, he says, وَنُرِيدُ أن نمن على الذين استضعفوا في الأرض. And those, we intend to make those who are istadfi'u, right? Comes from the word da'afa, those who are oppressed and weak, right? Those who are weak and oppressed, fil ard. Those who are in the earth, وَنَجْعَلْنَاهُمْ, and we plan to make them, or make them a'imah. A'imah is the plural for imams. And what is the translation of imam? A leader, right? So Allah never intended to leave the weak as weak. Allah never intended that. But when you have weak philosophy being pushed, what happens with the weak? They get weaker. And they start to lose hope that there's going to be some sort of relief. And then what happens is that now this animal-like mentality becomes more of the norm in his level, and he's saying, look, I'm gonna eat one way or another. That's when you're lost in the capitalist, because capitalism, supremacy, white supremacy is the overall system. In the system you got branches. Capitalism is a branch of white supremacy. It's a branch of it. And the bottom pit of white supremacy is poverty. That's kufr. It's just how it runs. And so he's talking about at the bottom. So Allah says about them, he said he want to make them a'imah. Right? وَنَجَعَلْنَهُمْ وَرَثِينَ. And he wants them to inherit the lands. Not only does he want them to be the leaders, but he wants them to inherit the lands of Pharaoh. He wants them to inherit the lands of Pharaoh. Now, let's go back. We said that the Prophet ﷺ, this surah was revealed when the Prophet ﷺ was on his way to Medina. What was he going to do when he was getting to Medina? What was the Muslims going to do? They basically going to set up shop, right? That's motivational. Because you can relate to it. The Prophet ﷺ can relate to it because they were part of the oppressed in Mecca. And not only were they oppressed, even if you try to say, well, they didn't have different groups. Oh, yes, they did. Shi'an. There was the group, the people that there was people that were from amongst them that didn't have protection from their family. They didn't have a lot of family. You had those who were from the low end on slaves, right? You had all of that because in Mecca they oppressed each group individually. When you read about Sumayya and her husband Yasir, right? No, Yasir was the son. What was Sumayya's husband name? Ismail. I can't remember right offhand. But anyway, the point being is they were from that group that didn't have no protection. So when they killed her, it was no repercussions to be worried about. But think about it, because they were a tribal people. If you know that the repercussion of you doing something to somebody, they like, man, he got a big clan. They gonna come and they gonna be ready to go to war. It make you a little more reluctant to go ahead and move forward on that person. The same way that when they tried to kill the Prophet ﷺ in Mecca, right? Just before, right around the time, about the time of the Hijrah. They came up with a plan. They said Shaitan was amongst them, disguised as an old man. They gave them the idea. Y'all need to kill Rasulullah. Y'all need to kill Muhammad. That's what they said. They said, well, how will we do that without the repercussions? Because we kill him, his family going to come riding on us. We ain't got time to be going to war with each other. How we going to do this? He said, you get a man from each tribe and have each man stab him. And they stab him up and kill him. And so it'd be everybody from each tribe. They can't fight everybody. So they're just going to take blood money and then he's dead and our problem is solved. Well, Allah gave help to the believer. He gave victory to the believers. And this is why it's so important for us as the weaker group in this society to have strong iman, a solid belief system. And if you ever look at all of the pseudo-Islamic groups, they all came in something that they all came in one thing. They corrupt belief and corrupt practice, right? Corrupt belief and corrupt practice. You have to have a solid connection. Allah doesn't want our situation to remain this way. This is why Allah gives you the ability. Once you take Shahada, that's your connection. You plugged in with your Lord now. You plugged in for protection, right? Now the rest, we have to just go by the manuscript that's there. We got the Quran, we got the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we got the manuscript. So back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this was their plan, to go there to go kill them. When they got to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's house, they found Ali ibn Abi Talib in the bed, and so they couldn't kill him. He was on his way to Mecca. I mean, he was on his way to Medina by the time they realized what was going on. Right? So, but the case in point, here Allah Ta'ala revealed this surah to give hope to the believers. To give hope. When you read this surah and but see, the part of the problem is you can't connect with this. You ever hear the group of people? I don't want to hear about politics. I don't want to hear about that. I'm just trying to get right with Allah. Getting out of your impoverished state, getting out your animalistic mentality is part of Allah's deen. But you're so deluded and you're affected by secular thought that you separate the church from the state, that you even do that naturally. I don't want to hear about no politics. I don't care about none of that stuff. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get right with Allah, man. I can't even stop fornicating. You sitting telling me about we need to, change our environment. Man, I got to get rid of these girls first. That's what happens. You put yourself inside of a box. And when you have that mentality, you're not too motivated to do anything. But here Allah Ta'ala revealed this ayat, and when you read it, it should give you hope because you should be able to identify where you at in society. What group you belong to. Because it's the same Fir'aunic prototype, the same Fir'aunic model. So in close, I'm going to read a couple more ayats and then we'll close out, inshallah. So Allah Ta'ala, he said he wanted to make them A'ima and Warathina, right? He wanted to make them leaders and inheritors of the earth. Not sharing part of the earth, making them inheritors of that particular land. Making them inheritors, making them leaders of that land. Because one thing that defines people is their leadership, and what defines their leadership is land. You ain't got no land, no leadership. Think about it. Let's go down to the bare minimum and think about people with gangs. Gangs have certain turfs. Am I correct? Yeah, certain areas. It's certain area you can't go. That's gang like nah, that's state territory, right? So the opposing gang, they either know not to go over there, or eventually they're gonna go over there and try to muscle them out of that space. What defines you as a group of people, as human beings, as a people? Your land and your leadership. Land, leadership. Land, leadership. Reminds me of what Malcolm said. It's the landlord versus the landless. That's what revolutionary is supposed to be, right? Land, leadership. Land, leadership. Nobody's thinking about that. Everybody claim to have a connection with Allah, but they're not thinking about no land. They ain't thinking about no leadership. They don't want to change their situation. So therefore, when you keep trying to figure out why these brothers keep going back to the streets, you got your answer. Landlord, landless don't even care. As long as I can rent somewhere. Do you know the mentality of people now? I don't know about the situation here, but I just give you an idea of what's happening between New York City and Philadelphia. What's happening between the two cities. They have this thing that's going on, the gentrification. They're taking up old ran down areas in the hood, and this is how they do it. They let it run down. They let people kill each other. What they say, when it's blood, what's it? I forgot. There's a statement that the realtors got. Blood on the ground. Money soon to come, something like that, some little flashy thing they say. So basically meaning when there's a lot of killings in that area. It seems bad. Everybody read the news, man, they killed everybody, man. Oh, man, that's crazy. They want you to kill each other because all of the crime that goes on brings the property value down. And then they come buy the house for next to nothing. Then after a while, what happens? They hike the price up on the rent. They change it to the point where they can evict you, right? Once they change that and you become landless, you go back into landless, landlord versus landless. You ain't got nothing. So now you displaced with your family. What does that do to the person? It puts them more in a further mind state of stress, and they may become even more criminal and animalistic in thinking and start doing far worse things, right? This is what's going on. So all of the black, you see all this influx of people from moving from up north to the south, and ain't really moving down here because it's the best thing to do. Is because ain't nothing going on up there. People can't find nowhere to live, so they coming down here where it's cheaper. That's what's happening, right? Landlord versus the landless. That's what's happening. So you're displacing everybody. People are displaced. They're running out of hope. They don't have proper education. They don't have skills, right? It's one thing when you got a job, where you got skills, but when you the next employee 999 over here at Dunkin' Donuts, you're expendable. You got to go to work like you depend on it. So in that mind state, you really becoming somebody else's slave at that point. Can you call out? Yeah, yo, look, I need Fridays off. You can't have Fridays off, buddy. I'm sorry. You got to work Friday. You're like, man, I got to go to the gym. You don't care about that. I mean, you can always quit. You can always quit. They'll invite you right out the door. Why? You lost. Landlord versus landless. You don't have anything. So that interrupts where you worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now you got to argue with them. And then it's like, man, I got all these things going on. So what you should be doing is thinking of how can I change my financial situation so I can worship Allah better. But usually what we do is we get comfortable. And we be all right working, missing June, missing Salat, missing everything Islamic because I got to pay bills. After a while, you start hiding behind that, right? I got to pay bills. I got to take care of my family. I got to do this. And you become absent. And so what happens to the growth of the Muslim community? It gets stumped. The system is so set up and rigged, you don't even have to send in an army to wipe out the Muslims. Muslims wipe out themselves with the extreme engagement of poverty. They'll wipe their own self out. You don't have to do anything. Literally. They wipe themselves out because they can't compete financially, or they wipe themselves out because they out here too busy killing each other. Meanwhile, we're going to go ahead and buy that land over there, and we're going to put this big casino up over here, and that'll be nice. And then we'll be like, well, what about the people? Where they going to live at? Ain't our problem. And we give a couple of them housing vouchers, and the rest of them, they just figure it out on their own. Landlord versus landless. But because we only focus about strengthening our relationship between me and Allah, and I don't care about nothing else, you ain't focusing on that, but you don't know, you moving over there closer and closer and getting in that pile. Once that happens, then you start taking off the thobes, you throw away your kufi. I got to do what I got to do to get money. That's how you kill urban Islam. Urban Islam is being killed every day like that. So with that, we'll stop there, inshallah. That I just wanted to show. Oh, just one point I want to mention. So this one last point. Because with all of this, you have to have the architect, the designer of all this to make sure that all of this is being spread. It has to be advocated from somewhere. It just can't happen without somebody calling you, right? You have to be able to send a message. So Allah Ta'ala, He says, وَنُمَكِّنَّ لَهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَنُرِيَ فِرْعَوْنَ وَحَمَامَ وَجُنُودُهُمَا مِنْهُمْ مَكَانُوا يَحْذَرُونَ. Now, one thing that's important here, you'll see in here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the same ayah, He says He wants to give them power in the land, right? And to make Fir'aun. Now, everybody He mentions in here is part of the system. Fir'aun, Haman. Who's Haman? Haman was like the news. He was CNN. He was the Bloomberg ticker, that tell you all the news that's going on. He was the internet. He was all of that, right? They had the same thing during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. This is why you can see this surah. It was just like that. What did they do with the Prophet ﷺ? Not only did they just outright reject him, but they also sent out lies against him. The same way they sent lies out against Malcolm, right? Remember one time they was telling people in Harlem that Malcolm had a white woman that lived in Harlem. You know, and Malcolm said this in the state, and he said, shoot, they're going to say that I got a white woman. Next time you hear one of them FBI's tell you something like that, tell them, yeah, he got a white woman, he got your mama. Right? Because they'll use propaganda. They'll lie, you know, and say things to make you, you know, make you look at your leadership funny. Right? And that's what I was talking about when I was making reference to that sheikh, you know. Imam's never here, you know. He doesn't know Arabic. He doesn't know this. And it starts to taint the way you look at your leadership. The same way when, you know, there's a lot of historical reference, you know, and I've been Muslim over 25 years. So I watched a lot of things change within the African-American Muslim community. And a lot of it was based off of propaganda. And then when you step back, you can see there was some feds or faba'in, like we call them in Philly, fabba and ain. You know, that's our little thing. But anyway, the feds, they were involved in it. You can tell there was some provocateur type of things going on, but there was so much going on, you couldn't see it right away. You didn't see it until people started going to jail and things like this. Islam now is cool. Islam in 98, 99, where I was in the masjid, two brothers got in an argument. It was really over this whole Salafi thing. One called the other brother a kafir. He stabbed him in the masjid in Brooklyn. Stabbed him right there. Boom, like we was in jail. Yo, I'm a kafir. Brother came out the masjid. He spent him. Wow, stabbed him. He's like, what? What happened, man? All of this. So there's some things that happened in the past that you're not seeing now, but they affect the outcome of things now. And that's why a lot of brothers is kind of like, I ain't saying nothing. These young boys, these boys crazy. They ain't chilling. They won't even advise them. So you just sit back and let them destroy each other. So anyway, so Haman, he was he was the person who sent out the propaganda, the lies, right? Haman is the one who keeps the statistics going, right? So that those people who are the realtors who's trying to come in to buy that piece of property, that valuable piece of property, but they got to get rid of that housing project, right? These are the people, they keeping the numbers. You don't really want this is very low value. You don't want this, right? They're the ones that's Haman. Wa junuduhum, and his armies from minhum, from amongst them. Amongst who? Bani Israel. Right? So they're saying that they had forces, snitches, and soldiers from amongst Bani Israel. And everybody knows the worst oppressor isn't the person who's on the opposite team. The worst oppressor is the one who comes from amongst you. He's the worst one. So here Allah Ta'ala is giving the Muslims so much insight. But because of our lack of commitment, our lack of learning, right? And he doesn't increase our insight because we're all fogged. We can't really see it straight. The only thing we're looking at is where our next meal about to come from, right? Or how am I going to stop fornicating, right? Stop from fornication is real easy. Get married. Okay, I got a high second, get another wife. Well, I ain't got no money. Ain't stop you. You ain't not had no money. Ain't stop you from fornicating. so you got to figure something out. Lesser of the two evils. You got to figure something out. But we got to stop having illegitimate children. We got to start having families. That's one of the biggest things that's killing us. You can't grow a community if the family is scattered. You have all these children. Where's their mothers? Oh, my baby mom that I used to mess with back in the day. And okay, well, what about now? Nobody's having those kind of families. So now what you have that crossroad that people are going against, where the children are getting Ramadan and Christmas all in the same family. We have to begin to build family. We have to establish institutes. We have to establish learning institutions of our own. You got a building. You don't need another building. Right here. Get your little children together. Start teaching them. Get the children together. Just that's simple. Get them together. Sometimes we over intellectualize things. Well, we need to get a bigger building, and we need to get 5 permits, and we need to have 5 teachers. One child per every 5 children per one teacher. You're getting too technical. Let's start off small. We can always modify. That's what it's called, modification. You can start getting into all that ramification, the specifics and the parameters that you need. Those things that you need to set up as time progresses. Start off very organic and small. Everything always starts off small and grows big. So with that, inshallah, we pray that Allah Ta'ala give us insight, and establish us firm upon Iman and Ihsan. Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdika wa ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta wa astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.
Now we have any questions. Anybody want to ask any questions or comments? They can ask them before we close out.
Nah, inshallah.
Peace for me. Shit. Yeah, question was one on coming, you know what I mean? Zachariah Ben Israel. Okay.
Alhamdulillah.
Tayyid Jabbar.
You said Haran was
Haman.
Amen. Amen. Now, what was the other dude? Qarun. He played another part too. That's the other. Qarun was always jealous of Musa. I think they were cousins. He had bread. He's the money man. You always had that in the community too.
But he was Israelite.
Yep. Well, he was a made man. He was from amongst them. And you know, and people got to the point, and this is what happens to us too. You're like, man, why we can't have money like Qarun? Right? That's how they got.
Like be like Mike.
Right. And then so what happens is when you take on this mentality, you become ungrateful. You start denying what you got. Sometimes in order to look at our situation, we have to look at the things that we got versus the thing that we don't have. When you look at what you don't have, you ain't never gonna have enough. And the more you don't have enough, the worse the situation gets for you. And then it helps develop that, you know, that animal-like characteristic where you like, yo, I'm just gonna go ahead and get the click clacking in order to get what I need. That's where it's coming from. We got the truth. We need to go back into our hoods and go back to our old people and things like that and give them what we got. They don't see it. All you gotta do, be patient. You'll see it after a while. You'll see it. You'll see it. They see it like, man, cuz really changed. That's good, man. I like that. Like, yo, you know, you ain't gonna go hang out with them and stuff like that while they out in the trap spot, you know, because young Muslims be doing some crazy stuff. Be hanging out in the trap spot, and then you get booked. You said they try to explain it. I wasn't selling anything, man. It was just, but cousin, you know, you got to kind of like give and go, keep going. You know what I mean? No.
alhamdulillah, Haran was the one that ordered the Israelites to build out of clay and cement.
You talking about Fir'aun?
Now remember he had
You told the one who built the calf.
he had ordered the guy that worked for him. His name was Haran.
Now I know Harun is Musa's brother.
Mm-hmm. Not Haran. I ain't talking about Haran. I'm talking about man, when they built the pyramids.
Oh, as far as the architect,
Yeah.
I don't know exactly who.
Zachariah, help out.
You speaking of the man who built the tower?
When this guy worked there before, he like the second in command.
Like the Vizier.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, Faroon?
Mm-hmm.
Now, Pharaoh, he had a second in command that ordered the Israelites.
Right, that's Haman.
Yeah, that's what he asked.
Oh, Haman. Yeah, Haman. Yeah. That's Haman. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that
Did they have basically did he order the construction of a tall building?
Yeah, Allah mentioned that. Hey, he ordered them to build me a tower so I can see who this Allah is. Right? Yeah. So, you know, and
So you see that the Kuffar now,
So in the Bible, that's the building.
that's the prototype for everybody now.
New York City,
Yeah. You know, tall buildings is usually supposed to be the sign of the majesty of whoever that building is. Like, so you go, like, New York is what the World Trade Tower is now. They don't got Freedom Center, that's what it's called. And they got that one huge building. I forgot who the owner of it is. But now I live in Philadelphia. I think the biggest corporation with the biggest building in Philly, which is the third largest building on the East Coast, is I think it's the Comcast. So they just put this thing together. When Philadelphia became the fifth largest city and knocked Phoenix out, right, according to the census, because if you're in the top 5, the city get federal money. So those years where Philadelphia, if you look at all those numbers, their murders was up high, right, real high. In all of the areas where the murders were real high, all them joints now we call them, they the colonizers areas now. That's a colonialist. Not the colonial. What do we call them? Pilgrims. That's where they all live at now. Yeah, Fishtown. They started restructuring Center City. Center City is like the section, like the down, like what they call a downtown area. Well, they started pushing it into the neighborhoods, into South Philly and North Philly, because the borders of South Philly and North Philly, it surrounds, in West Philly, it surrounds the Center City. That's why they call it Center City. And so they started doing was now pushing their residencies, pushing it further back, rezoning everything. So now they had Center City South, Center City North, Center City West, or University City, my fault. And, and so then what happened was these kids that were graduating from college, they started raising the rent. Everybody that was there couldn't afford the rent no more. And Philadelphia is relatively cheap, to rent and buy property, to be honest with you. And so they started raising the average rent. 2004 for like a 3-bedroom was probably about $500-600, right? The row house, $500-600 a month. By the time they started rezoning and everything, rent started. It went up. It went up gradually. It got up to the point where it was about $800. I think now you can get a three bedroom now for about $1,000 a month. That's average. That's in the hood. It's like New York City. One time in New York City, average rent in the hood just for a 1-bedroom apartment was $900. I think 1-bedroom apartment now in New York City is almost $2,000 a month. And this is in the hood. You see what I'm saying? So what's happening now, the way New York City set up now, people who have been in relationships done broke up, they still living together because they can't afford to go nowhere else. So they be like, look, I got a girlfriend, you got your boyfriend, we just got to separate, use different rules. Now you live with your ex-girl and her new man. Right? This is how rough it's getting. Now don't get me wrong, there's some monies there to compensate, but what happens is when they do that increase like that, if you don't have a viable skill or you don't have a business of your own, what happens is now you may have been able to work 1 minimum wage job in order to take care of yourself, but now you got to work 2, maybe 3. And what they're doing now even more now is because of the effects of the Obamacare, which I didn't see this one coming, it's like a blindside, you have to have insurance now. You have to have insurance. If you don't, you get penalized for it, right? So what happens now is that they lowered the hours of full-time. Full-time was 36 hours or more. Full-time now is 32 hours. So what does that do? A person can get hired at a department store at $7.25 an hour and can max out at 32 hours. You see what's happening now? So now with that 32 hours, now you got to sign up for your government insurance. And at 32 hours, what's minimum wage? $8 an hour now, something like that. And you take that little bit of money when you only work 8 hours a day, you make $64 a day. That's what you're making at minimum wage. When they get done with taxes and everything, you probably make about $42 a day, all right? And then they tell me you got to have insurance, and if you don't have insurance, you get penalized when it's tax time. You got to pay a fine. So what does that do? How you gonna pay rent when you only bring it home probably about what? $40 times 32, probably about $144 a check. How you gonna pay rent? So you got to get somebody to live with. You see what I'm saying? So they're doing these things, and these things are working. They're not working for us. They're actually working against us, and it's making our predicament far worse. There's places where there used to be masses. Masses are closing in some cities. Why? Because the area they at now, it's too expensive. They're like, we gotta go across town over here where it's cheaper, or we just don't have a mass shit at all, and we just all go across town and go to that mass shit. So not having a plan. You have to have an economic plan. One of the things I was advising the community in Philly at the time when all of this change was going on was 2 things. One, get you a skill. If you're gonna work, at least work for somebody. Work where they're gonna pay you for what you're worth. Don't work for somebody just to be working. Work where they're gonna pay you. So what we do, we started researching all of the jobs that people with records can get, right? One of the jobs that can sustain the community, because now your money is for you, but it's also for your community too. So one of the gigs that we all came up with was truck driving. You can drive regionally, you can drive nationally, whatever the case is. If you got a felony, you can still become a truck driver. You just need a CDL. You can be a bus driver, all right? It just all depends on what type of felonies or things like that you have. Bus drivers make at least about minimum like $16 an hour. You see, so we started coming up with ideas like, why are you in school? Y'all might have to live together. Brothers might have to, move in the same building together. Rent $800 a month. You pay for, you for. You can pay for 4 and 4. All right. Get a third brother to move in, right? He can pay the electric. That's how you. But you shouldn't be out here hurting. And so a lot of people wasn't ready, ready for that. And shelters are full. Shelters started closing down, so you had no more shelters. People were just, just being displaced. Children were being taken away. The agencies were coming in taking children. Why? Because the mother's homeless. Why is the mother homeless? Because she can only get a job at McDonald's, right? Rent too high. So what happened? That was the struggle. So then what did that force people to do? Well, hit the streets. All right, I'm about to go get me, I got to do this. I get a job. Now I can get, you have to think ahead. As a Muslim, you should always be planning. Always be planning. Open up a little market. Open up a little market. All you got to do is set up a stand, right? We went through that whole phase where everybody was condemning the man who was out selling things for himself. Like one of the new things, because, in the buying and selling business, things come in waves. Right? Because if you go back last year, everybody was buying hoverboards. Them little joints that everybody was spending $300. I ain't understand how people was able to afford it, but everybody buying little hoverboards. That was the new wave. People were selling at least 5, 6 a day. That's $1,500 a day, right? They was moving. Then it slowed down. People started selling turtles, right? A lot of people all the brothers, all they can do is sell turtles. I know a brother will make about like $5,000 a week off of turtles. 5 G's a week. Meanwhile, everybody talking about, y'all brothers, you need to get real jobs. Real job translated into work minimum wage so that, so basically you hurting. No, just make employment, make income for yourself. That's how you got to think of it, and always think of ways to always get ahead. Get ahead. You don't want to become greedy, but you want to be able to, how can I better take care of my family? One thing about buying and selling is it increases your iman. It helps you because you see it in its reality. The problem with the job is you have like funnel vision. You don't see that the job is only provided to you by means of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but rather you see your job as the means of your provision. You forget about Allah because every week you get the same income. If you clock out early, you lose, how money per hour. But if you do overtime, you get an increase. But if you don't, you just do your basic hours, you get the same money every week. That can make bring about comfortability, right? Bring about comfortability, which isn't a bad thing. But what happens is you get complacent and you start to forget about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with regards to your sustenance. Versus somebody that's a merchant, he come out, no money, and come back with a pocket full. Right? You're like, man, alhamdulillah, it's a good day. And you ain't got to wait till next week to get your money. Get your money the same day. So it brings about more responsibility. Islam is one of the most responsible way of life that you'll ever have. You always got to pay attention to the time because you got to pray 5 times a day. Always got to pay attention to the time. You got to pay attention to your money because you got to pay zakat. You got to pay attention. You literally have to pay attention to your money. You can't just spend your money how you want to. You have to put aside money, start saving it up so you can meet the minimum nisab so that you can pay zakat. Islam makes you responsible. You got to make hajj once in your life. So what does that require you to do? Save more money. I got to put aside some money so I can make it a hajj. Islam will make you responsible, right? It puts the burden of responsibility. It makes the woman responsible. Oh, you're going to get married. You're going to have children, right? You want to have children. You're going to get married. Okay. Within those responsibilities, there's certain responsibilities that you got to have towards your husband. As a man, you want a wife. There's certain responsibilities you got to have towards your wife. Islam has its own system. We don't have room to be winging it or trying to bring in our practices from our non-Muslim days into Islam. Islam has its own thing put together. The only thing we got to do is learn and apply what we learn. So, any other questions or comments? I'll close out, inshallah. Alhamdulillah. Yeah. Thank y'all for having me here, inshallah. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for coming.
Alhamdulillah. Man, I gotta figure out how to tell it. There we go.